Ladies and gentlemen, respect is not demanded, it is earned. And when it comes to the bond between men and women, there is truly one type of man that a woman respects, a man of character, not wealth, not looks, not status, but character. A woman respects a man who knows who he is, a man who stands firm in his values, who does not bend like a leaf in the wind just to please everyone around him. Confidence rooted in integrity is magnetic, and it inspires trust. She respects the man who keeps his word. In a world full of promises that are easily broken, reliability is rare. When a man says what he means and means what he says, a woman sees strength, not in muscles, but in consistency. A woman respects the man who leads with humility. Leadership is not control, it is guidance. A man who can protect without suffocating, provide without boasting, and love without conditions. This is the kind of man who wins her lifelong admiration. She respects the man who masters himself. A man who can control his temper, his impulses, and his ego shows real power. If he cannot lead himself, he cannot lead a family, a relationship, or even his own life. Discipline is dignity, and women see it clearly. And above all, a woman respects the man who respects her, not through empty flattery, but by valuing her voice, her presence, and her worth. True respect is mutual. It cannot exist one way. So, gentlemen, remember this. It is not your possessions, your position, or your popularity that will win a woman's respect. It is your principles. When your actions align with your values, when you stand as a man of honor, you become the one type of man that every woman truly respects. When we talk about respect, we have to understand that respect cannot be bought, forced, or begged for. It has to be earned, and one of the deepest truths about life is that people, especially women, are drawn to and respect men who know who they are. This doesn't mean being perfect or having every detail of life figured out. Instead, it means having a strong sense of identity, clarity in values, and the courage to live authentically. A man who knows who he is does not live for the approval of others. He doesn't need to pretend, wear a mask, or shift his personality just to fit into a crowd. He carries himself with quiet confidence, not arrogance, because his confidence is not based on external validation. He doesn't need to brag, boast, or scream for attention. His very presence communicates stability, assurance, and direction. Think about the opposite for a moment. A man who doesn't know who he is, who tries to please everyone, or who is constantly seeking approval, will always lose respect over time. Why? Because people can sense insecurity. Women in particular are highly intuitive. They notice when a man is pretending to be something he's not, when he changes his opinions to fit the room, or when he hides behind false confidence. And when she sees that, her respect diminishes. But a man rooted in his identity doesn't waver when the world shakes. He knows his values: honesty, loyalty, discipline, kindness, or whatever principles guide him, and he lives by them consistently. Even when no one is watching, he upholds his standards. That kind of man is rare, and rarity breeds respect. This doesn't mean he's stubborn or unwilling to grow. In fact, true self-awareness means he is constantly learning, improving, and sharpening himself. But even as he grows, he never loses sight of his essence. He knows what he believes in, what he stands for, and what he will not compromise. Women respect a man like this because he provides something priceless: certainty. In a world full of uncertainty, where trends change daily and opinions are easily swayed, a man who knows himself stands like a rock. A woman can look at him and say, "I may not agree with him on everything, but at least I know where he stands." That reliability of character creates trust. And here's the beautiful thing: a man who knows himself also knows how to treat others. Because he is not desperate for approval, he doesn't manipulate, lie, or deceive to gain attention. He treats people with respect because he respects himself first. Self-respect always comes before respect from others. Gentlemen, if you want to earn respect, especially the respect of a woman, begin by asking yourself, who am I? What do I stand for? What principles will I not compromise, no matter the cost? When you live by those answers consistently, you don't have to chase respect. Respect will find you. So, the first type of man that a woman respects is the man who knows who he is. Because authenticity, clarity, and confidence rooted in values are impossible not to admire. In a world filled with broken promises, empty talk, and fleeting commitments, one of the most powerful traits a man can embody is integrity. And integrity shows itself most clearly in this: a man who keeps his word. When a man says something and follows through, it creates trust. Trust builds respect. It's that simple. Women, in particular, respect men who mean what they say and say what they mean, because in relationships, reliability is not optional. It's the foundation upon which everything else stands. Think about this. How many times have people made promises they never intended to keep? How many times has someone said, "I'll call you, I'll be there," or "I'll take care of it," and then failed to deliver? Over time, those empty words chip away at respect. Words without action lose weight, and eventually, people stop listening. Now contrast that with a man who is dependable. When he says he will do something, you can mark it down as done. He doesn't overpromise, he doesn't exaggerate, and he doesn't make commitments lightly. But when he does commit, he follows through, even if it costs him time, energy, or comfort. That kind of consistency makes people take him seriously. For a woman, this kind of man is golden, because she knows she can rely on him, not just in the easy times, but in the difficult ones. She knows that his words are not cheap, and that when he speaks, it's backed by action. That reliability gives her a sense of security and deep respect. Keeping your word isn't just about big promises, it's about the small, everyday ones too. If you tell someone you'll show up at 6, don't arrive at 6:30 with excuses. If you promise to handle something, handle it. Every small act of consistency builds your reputation, and reputation is everything when it comes to respect. But let's be clear, keeping your word doesn't mean saying yes to everything. In fact, the man who says yes to everyone often ends up breaking promises because he overcommits. A respected man knows his limits. He only gives his word when he knows he can follow through. Sometimes the most respectful answer you can give is a firm no. Because false promises destroy trust, but honesty, even when it disappoints, strengthens it. Here's another truth: life will test your integrity. There will be moments when keeping your word is inconvenient, costly, or difficult. Maybe you promised to help someone, but now you're tired. Maybe you committed to a goal, but the path is harder than you expected. In those moments, many people give up, but the man who pushes through to honor his word stands apart. That's when respect is earned at the deepest level, when you keep your word not because it's easy, but because it's right. And there's more. A man who keeps his word not only earns respect from women, but also from men, colleagues, friends, and even himself. Self-respect grows when you live with integrity. Every time you honor your word, you build inner strength. You look in the mirror and know you are reliable, dependable, and trustworthy. That energy radiates outward, and people feel it. So if you want to be respected, don't chase respect directly. Chase integrity. Guard your words. Don't speak carelessly. Let your words carry weight because they are always backed by action. Over time, people will learn that your voice matters. And for women, this is non-negotiable. Respect is not given to a man who talks big but delivers little. It's given to the man whose life proves his promises. That's the man who earns her trust. That's the man who earns her admiration. That's the man she respects. When most people hear the word leadership, they immediately picture power, control, and authority. But real leadership, the kind that earns lifelong respect, is something much deeper. And the man a woman respects most is not the man who demands control, but the man who leads with humility. Leadership in a relationship or in life is not about barking orders or trying to dominate. It is about guidance, direction, and responsibility. A man who leads with humility understands that leadership is not a right. It is a responsibility. He doesn't crave leadership to boost his ego, but accepts it to serve others. That subtle shift in mindset changes everything. A humble leader knows that strength doesn't mean being loud, arrogant, or controlling. In fact, true strength often looks like calmness, patience, and selflessness. A man who leads with humility doesn't try to prove his superiority. Instead, he proves his strength by lifting others up, by providing security, and by creating an environment where people, especially his partner, feel safe, supported, and valued. Women deeply respect this kind of man. Why? Because his leadership doesn't suffocate, it empowers. He is strong, but his strength is not used to control. It is used to protect. He is decisive, but he listens before making decisions. He is confident, but not boastful, and he carries responsibility not as a burden to complain about, but as an honor to uphold. Let's compare two types of men. The first is the man who tries to lead through force. He shouts, demands, and insists on control. People may follow him out of fear, but not out of respect. Over time, that kind of leadership crumbles because it is rooted in ego, not service. The second type is the man who leads with humility. He doesn't need to shout. His presence commands respect because of his consistency, his wisdom, and his willingness to put others before himself. People follow him not because they have to, but because they want to. That's real leadership. Humility in leadership also shows in the willingness to admit mistakes. A man who leads with humility is not afraid to say, "I was wrong," or "I need help." Far from making him weak, this makes him stronger because it shows honesty, self-awareness, and maturity. Women respect men who can admit flaws while still striving to improve. That combination of strength and vulnerability creates a balance that is deeply attractive and worthy of respect. Another aspect of humble leadership is vision. A respected man doesn't just live day to day without purpose. He sets direction for himself, for his family, and for his relationship. He thinks ahead, plans wisely, and makes decisions that reflect not just what's easy in the moment, but what's best in the long run. This foresight gives a woman confidence in his leadership, because she knows he is not reckless, but intentional. But perhaps the most important piece is this: leadership with humility always respects partnership. A man who truly leads never disrespects his partner's voice. He doesn't silence her opinions or diminish her role. Instead, he values her input, seeks her perspective, and recognizes her as an equal. Leadership in relationships is not about one person dominating. It is about both walking together, with the man taking responsibility to protect, guide, and serve while still honoring her individuality. So what does this look like in practice? It's the man who works hard not just for himself, but for those he loves. It's the man who makes decisions with consideration, not selfishness. It's the man who leads his household not by force, but by example, through discipline, kindness, and accountability. At the end of the day, the man a woman respects is not the one who tries to prove his leadership through pride or control. It is the man who quietly, consistently, and humbly carries his responsibility with honor. His leadership doesn't diminish her, it empowers her. His leadership doesn't inflate his ego, it serves his purpose. And that kind of leadership will always command respect. There is a saying that goes, "He who conquers others is strong, but he who conquers himself is mighty." And nothing could be more true when it comes to respect. A woman respects a man who has learned the art of self-mastery, because without it, all other qualities eventually collapse. Think about it. A man who cannot control his temper becomes dangerous. A man who cannot control his desires becomes reckless. A man who cannot control his impulses becomes unreliable. Without discipline, even the most talented, charming, or intelligent man will lose respect over time. But a man who masters himself, his emotions, his habits, his mind, earns deep admiration because he shows real strength, the kind of strength that cannot be faked. Self-mastery begins with emotional control. Every man feels anger, frustration, and disappointment. Those emotions are natural, but how he handles them is what separates the respected from the forgotten. A man who explodes in rage at every inconvenience, who lashes out when things don't go his way, becomes unpredictable and feared, but never respected. In contrast, a man who stays calm under pressure, who responds with patience instead of aggression, radiates authority. Women respect men who can remain steady when life throws chaos at them. Self-mastery also extends to discipline in daily life. A man who respects himself cares for his body, his mind, and his responsibilities. He doesn't waste endless hours in distractions, addictions, or laziness. Instead, he builds habits that strengthen him, whether it's working hard, keeping fit, learning continuously, or pursuing meaningful goals. This discipline sends a clear message: he is in control of his life, not enslaved by it, and that kind of man earns respect because his consistency sets him apart. Another dimension of self-mastery is restraint. A man who cannot control his impulses, whether it's chasing after every temptation, spending recklessly, or speaking without thought, shows weakness, not strength. But the man who practices restraint demonstrates maturity. He doesn't chase instant gratification. He delays pleasure for a greater purpose. That level of control is powerful. It shows that he is not ruled by his desires, but instead rules over them. Women respect a man who has that kind of power over himself, because it proves he can be trusted with responsibility, leadership, and commitment. Consider also the role of self-mastery in relationships. A man who has not mastered himself will project his insecurities onto his partner through jealousy, possessiveness, or lack of trust. But a man who knows who he is, who has tamed his fears and ego, brings peace into the relationship. He doesn't need to dominate or control because he is already in control of himself. That inner stability earns a woman's deepest respect because she knows he is reliable not only in good times, but also in storms. And let's not forget mental mastery. A respected man invests in his mind. He reads, he learns, he questions, and he grows. He doesn't settle for ignorance. He sharpens his intellect. Mastery of the mind creates clarity, wisdom, and the ability to make sound decisions. Women respect men who think before they act, who are thoughtful instead of reckless, and who are strong enough to say no to what weakens them. Here's the truth. Real strength is not about lifting heavy weights, having a big bank account, or commanding fear. Real strength is the ability to govern yourself. A man who can lead himself can lead a family, a business, and even a community. But a man who cannot lead himself cannot be trusted to lead anyone else. So, gentlemen, if you want to be respected, master yourself first. Master your emotions, your habits, your impulses, and your mind. Because the man who has conquered himself stands unshakable, and that kind of man is impossible not to respect. Respect is not one-sided. It is not something a man can demand while refusing to give it. The truth is, a woman cannot truly respect a man who does not respect her in return. And the type of man who earns her admiration, loyalty, and trust is the man who shows her genuine respect, not through empty words, but through consistent action. Respecting a woman doesn't mean placing her on a pedestal or showering her with endless flattery. It doesn't mean agreeing with her on everything or surrendering your voice to avoid conflict. True respect is deeper than that. It means valuing her as a human being, with her own voice, opinions, dreams, and individuality, and treating her as an equal partner in life. A man who respects a woman listens to her. He doesn't dismiss her ideas as less important, or interrupt her when she speaks. Instead, he considers her perspective, values her input, and recognizes her intelligence. When a man listens, he communicates something powerful. Your voice matters to me. And that simple act of recognition builds profound respect in return. Respect is also shown through how a man treats a woman's boundaries. A respected man never forces, pressures, or manipulates. He honors her comfort zones, whether emotional, physical, or personal. This doesn't make him weak. It makes him strong, because only a secure man can show restraint and patience. Women respect men who understand that trust grows at the pace of safety, not pressure. But respecting a woman goes beyond boundaries. It also means supporting her ambitions. A man who respects her doesn't feel threatened by her success. He doesn't try to dim her light so that his can shine brighter. Instead, he celebrates her achievements, encourages her growth, and stands proudly beside her. This creates a partnership where both thrive. That kind of respect makes her admire him even more, because she knows he is not intimidated by her strength. He is inspired by it. There is also respect in the small, everyday actions. A man who shows gratitude for the things she does, who notices her efforts, who protects her dignity in public and in private. These subtle acts speak volumes. Respect is not just grand gestures. It's the daily choices to honor her presence and her worth. Of course, respect must always be mutual. A woman cannot truly respect a man who belittles her, ignores her feelings, or treats her as less than. Disrespect poisons relationships. It breeds resentment, erodes trust, and eventually destroys admiration. But when a man consistently treats his woman with dignity and honor, she responds with loyalty, devotion, and deep respect. Respect is also about honesty. A man who hides truths, plays games, or manipulates emotions shows cowardice, not strength. A respected man is transparent. He is straightforward in his intentions and faithful in his commitments. Even when the truth is uncomfortable, he delivers it with courage and kindness, and women respect this honesty because it shows courage, and courage is the root of all respect. So, gentlemen, understand this. Respect is not optional. You cannot demand it if you are unwilling to give it. A man who respects his woman, her mind, her body, her voice, her dreams, is the man who earns her admiration in return. That respect builds trust, strengthens love, and cements loyalty. The type of man a woman respects is the one who never forgets that respect is mutual, and when you respect her, she will not only respect you, she will honor you with the kind of admiration that lasts a lifetime. So, what is the one type of man that a woman respects? It is not the richest, the strongest, or the most handsome. It is not the man with the loudest voice or the biggest ego. It is the man of character. A woman respects the man who knows who he is, because authenticity is rare. She respects the man who keeps his word, because reliability is priceless. She respects the man who leads with humility, because true strength is service. She respects the man who masters himself, because discipline is dignity, and she respects the man who respects her, because love without respect is hollow. Gentlemen, you don't have to be perfect to be respected. You simply have to be principled. When your actions align with your values, when you lead yourself before you lead others, when you honor the people around you with dignity, you become the one type of man that every woman truly respects. Thank you.